Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner and to a Cardfight Vanguard premium deck profile. It's October, which means the new ban list is up and active, and what a ban list it was, huh? I don't know what I can really say that other content creators haven't already said. Like, this was a nuclear ban list, the likes of which you'd see out of Konami, except this was probably more Konami than Konami has been in the past bit, as Bushiroad really went after the problematic decks and the dumb interactions, and they took feedback from the Western player base, which was which influenced a vast majority of the hits. Like, Japan still had some input too, which is why there was a hit to Chaos, because apparently Chaos is a really strong and popular deck in their premium format compared to our premium format. I also think that Zinc's being banned is a bit of future-proofing, depending on what Nebula Lord Dragon and his supporting cards do. And Jamio Congo, I guess, is also pretty prominent over in their format. Not as much as Chaos, but it's still a thing. Granted, Jamio was a dumb card that should have never been printed anyway, because hand attacking is dumb in any card game where the hand matters. But yeah, overall, the response to this ban list has been almost unanimously positive. I think only like maybe a few people would be disappointed in it, and that's only because they had maybe only one premium deck and it was one of the ones that just got neutered on the ban list. But otherwise though, everyone's happy about this. There's hype for the format. More people are going to be playing premium. It's a wide open format, lots of experimenting, lots of decks being played. Like, when I told my friend about like the ban list and the feedback from it, he was like, wow, must be nice to have a ban list that people like. And I kind of just dropped the matter, because yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh's last ban list was not very thorough or big. But regardless, so in this video I'm going to be profiling what I would be playing if I were to go to locals again, but unfortunately our locals were still killed, so this would be just for Cardfight area. But obviously I would make a couple changes for it, which is why I'm going to show you the current list, and then I'll tell you what I would change for the V collection coming up, because Heal Guardians I do believe matter for this deck. And that will be Narukami featuring Stunverse Dragon, and the best deck that can take advantage of it, Full Bronto for the time being. Now, you've got, as far as variants of Narus to play in the format, you've got this, you've got Vermilion with the V-Series Blood, although I don't really think that deck is as good as just playing this, or even Eradicators. Eradicators have the gimmick of the option to Superior Ride Dragonic Descendant early if you play that package. Otherwise, I don't really see a lot of merit to playing Erads at the moment. Like, once Vowing Sword Dragon comes out, the deck gets a little better, because Vowing Sword plus Stunverse Dragon is a really good interaction. But Erads still don't have enough good cards to warrant playing them over this, because you have the ability to push hard with this deck. You're cycling cards with your draw and bind abilities, and what else can I really say? Like, this is an aggressive multi-attack deck. Unfortunately, your early game is still and Heal Guardians will help patch up that a little bit. It would be nice if this deck gets a couple more generic usable tools thrown its way. Like, I'm actually considering playing Spark Rain Dragon from the next set in here, because it's an extender for this, believe it or not, and I'll show you how it works for this. And Demolition Dragon I would play as like my extra grade 1s if I were to ditch a certain grade 1 here. And that's all I really got to say in here. So with that being said, let's get into it. So it is Full Bronto standard premium format, so that means it's going to be your basic Full Bronto list with a little bit of extra thrown in. So for the grade 3s, 4 copies of Full Bronto, 3 copies of Dragonic Vanquisher for my Vanquisher lineup, and then finally 4 copies of Jaggy Shot Dragoon. I've seen some people play this at 3. I might at some point, I don't know yet. But I have this and this maxed out because this is an extender and an enabler, and this is an extender. This is your ideal ride, but afterwards extra copies don't really do a whole lot, since this build does not play Drachma or Gugar, or I forget his name. He's always been hard to pronounce, but it doesn't play any of the ultimate strides, so like there's less value in having a whole bunch of Dragonic Vanquishers clumping in your hand, and he doesn't do anything on rearguard or doesn't interact with your bind zone, so I've cut him down to 3. The deck can search him pretty easily through your grade 1s, so it's not going to be an issue of finding it after you get that first ride and whatnot. And that's really going to say here. Like, the grade 3 lineup I think is pretty set in stone. This list doesn't play the book because you don't need it because of Stunverse Dragon, as he essentially is a book. Then for the grade 2s, 4 copies of Rock Climb Dragoon, 4 copies of Shatura, 3 copies of Cho-Oh, and then you've got a flex spot in here. So this list has 4 flex spots, which is 2 here, and then there's 2 additional grade 1s I'm playing. They could be another copy of Cho-Oh, another copy of Dragonic Vanquisher, and then Rising Phoenixes, Demolition Dragons, Smash Boxer Dragons. Like, there's a little bit of a degree of flexibility in here, aside from like the stuff I've shown, but as far as what I'm going with here. So 4 copies of Rock Climb Dragoon. It's an extender, it's removal, it gets itself out of dodge, so your opponent can't, say, try and deny you damage, although this is a deck that doesn't use a whole lot of damage to work, so damage denying isn't as threatening here, but it's just a thing to keep in the back of your mind. Like, the ability to attack, get itself out, and call Shatura down, and then apply a full Bronto, I think is a really good thing. And of course, Shatura is your best beater and call target for your bind skills. Cho-Oh is non-targeting removal, as well as being a multi-attacker. Eradicators make better use of this once with Vowing Sword Dragon, just because you can stack multiple 5s or 10,000s on it, and he gets really big and threatening. And then 2 copies of Zuitan. So I'm debating between whether or not I want to play Zuitan in here, or I want to play the promo card Dragon Dancer Barca, as they both are have different purposes in here, but I think they are warranted. So Zuitan with Stunverse Dragon gets really big, which is nice, and then much like with Rock Climb Dragoon, he can cycle himself out in Mirage, so you can dodge removal from your opponent, dodge damage deny, and get yourself a much needed card to your hand. Whereas Barca is another extender, enabler. After she battles, if you have a grade 3 Vanguard or greater, you can Soul Blast 1, bind 1 from hand, draw a card, and then force your opponent to move something from the back row up to the front. It's mainly here for the cycle, much like with Voltec Shred Dragon. And truth be told, I could probably play him in here too, because the back moving effect I feel like is not as good in this as it would be in V format Vanquisher, because Stunverse Dragon will most likely kill off your opponent's back row, or they won't have much of a board and it'll just be gone off of Stunverse. So it's whatever. So yeah, you can either play this, max out more of these, and play for some other cards. I think all these options are pretty valid. As far as what I would potentially cut for, what's his name? Spark Rain Dragon, that is a good question. I have maybe thought about playing this. Spark Rain is removal, it gets itself out of dodge, and it also is an extra attack, much like this. I can't remember if Spark Rain chooses for his bind effect, so he might get around the resist units, I don't know. As far as why I'm thinking about playing Spark Rain Dragon, it's basically with this deck, he acts much like a Basil or a Diamantes, because suppose you've got Vanquisher's 10k to the front row applied, and you've got Spark Rain Dragon here. So you can just simply do the setup of Spark Rain attacks for whatever number. He gets 1,000 power for every one of your opponent's bound cards, so he's probably going to be a 22 or 23 after a Stunverse. So he attacks, counter +1, bind himself, bind what's in front of him, and then both players move their back row unit in that column up to the front, and then you get to swing with this. So you get to make use of your extra copies of your Jaggy and your maybe a Rock Climb that's behind it, or something like Rock Climb. Here I'm talking about Rock Climb when I'm thinking about cutting Rock Climb, but you know what I mean. Like, you could even throw a Cho-Oh behind the Spark Rain and then move it up and then swing afterwards for more attacks. So that's why I'm really liking the idea of applying, or rather, I like the idea of using Spark Rain Dragon in this list, as it's extra attacks, and it helps you make use, unclog your hand if you happen to have a couple too many Jaggies or the like, because that does happen. Sometimes you want to call down more Jaggies, but you just don't have enough front row slots for it because of not as much rewriting that you do in here. And then moving on to the grade 1s, 4 copies of Chain Bolt Dragoon, and then 3 copies of the original Mighty Bolt Dragoon. So since Heal Guardians aren't out yet, I'm playing this guy. When they come out, I might play the other one. I like the fact that this is a guaranteed search for Vanquisher or full Bronto. It just comes down to what the hand is looking like at the moment. Like, if it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get to original Vanquisher, then I can just get him. If I already am on Vanquisher, then I can get full Bronto. Because there's a high number of grade 3s in this list, I will almost always have something to reveal for this guy's effect, and then therefore fetch my Draconic Vanquisher if need must. And Yeah, not much else I can really say here. It's just, I like this guy. It's more stride opportunities, and then rounding up the grade ones, 2 copies of Summon Lightning Dancing Princess Anastasia. So, Oracle Think Tank did not get hit aside from Zarzan, so you still have to keep in the back of your mind that Ichikishima is in the format, and this allows you to defend against Ichikishima. If they've got Ichitom, that's another story, but hopefully you will have ripped enough of their hand where it might not happen. I don't know. Like, the OTT matchup is iffy, especially since Kaliko didn't get hit, but yeah, this is just here for that matchup. If you have more OTTs in your area to worry about, then you could probably cut the 2 Sweet Hands and then just play 4 of these instead. Like, Anastasia's effect, if you don't remember, is Thunder Strike 4. When it leaves the Guardian Circle, you get to draw a card. So she's a free PG, much like those D-Series ones, which is always nice to have. And not much to really say about that. Moving on to the triggers. That's the same lineup, I think, the last time I profiled this, so which would be 7 crits plus the over trigger, and then because we're playing Anastasia, only 2 draw PGs and then 2 vanilla draws, and finally 4 heals. These will be Heal Guardians when they come out, because like I said, Heal Guardians are very useful in the Vanquisher deck for defending against early game rush and stopping big crit attacks. Likewise, though, Heal Guardians are going to be a little annoying for this deck to deal with because they more or less negate Draconic Vanquisher's 10k buff, which means you kind of have to high roll that much harder or have a full Bronto in your hand going first for your turn 3. Otherwise, yeah, they can just block your attacks, and that's kind of a yikes. Moving on to the G-Zone, so 3 copies of Stunverse Dragon. This is what makes the clan work, and yeah, like I said before, whichever build of Naru's that can exploit this the best will be the ones going forward. And maybe somewhere down the road, some kind of D-Series deck will work well with this. It's definitely not going to be Eugene, as he cares about retires, not binds. But in any case, yeah, Stunverse Dragon pops the board, pops the drop zone, rips cards out of the hand. And the first one is good. It's the second and potentially third Stunverses that just blow your opponent out. And how well your opponent is able to play around Stunverse will determine how good your game is going to be. Some decks can just play around it a lot better than others, like Night Rose, as they don't have much of a board, and then you're only like binding maybe 3, 4, or 5 cards that turn. So yeah, Stunverse though is a fantastic card. Then for your main finisher, 4 copies of Draconic Vanquisher Voltage, your bind zone gets big, and not much else to say here. And then 2 copies of V-Buster to flip up with this guy, and the occasional time where you will first stride this, just because Stunversing your opponent for 2 cards is not very good, so you might as well go into V-Buster and get either 1 or 2 cards and those little 3000 buffs. His other effects almost never come up. And then rounding it out, you've got your secondary win con in VMAX. Sometimes you'll be able to just get that easy 6 damage off on your opponent. It comes up 1 GB8 because Closer Dragon is so pretty strong, and then for the G Guardians, 2 copies of Impede, 2 copies of Bulwark, and then 1 copy of Brahma, who is thankfully getting a triple rare upgrade in the in the Revival Selection set. Just unfortunately, my stuff hasn't come in yet because living in Canada lol. And that's pretty much it for the deck profile. So we'll just go through closing thoughts. So that is it for the deck in a nutshell. I know I didn't mention what starter I was playing when I first started talking about the list, but I think it's fairly obvious that it would, of course, be any V-Series starter, because Narukami's other starters, aside from Dagger Draco Kid for Descendant, are not good, and D-Series starters are just worse than V-Series starters, because drawing going first and second is better than drawing only going second. Plus, quick shields sometimes come up. So yeah, that's all I really gotta say. Like, as far as this deck has what it's got going for it in the new premium format, I think this has a reasonable chance of being a high tier 2, tier 1.5, or maybe even a tier 1 deck. It's definitely one that people will be keeping in the back of their minds as a potential sleeper deck, just because Stunverse Dragon can really blow people out if they accidentally play into it. And sometimes you can't really avoid playing into Stunverse Dragon, because you will eventually have to commit cards to the board, and the full Bronto package allows the deck to do some really good stuff on turn 3 if it sees enough of its pieces. And yeah, I don't know what else there is to say. Like, it's always been a solid deck. It just wasn't as fast or powerful as the previous top decks of the earlier premium formats. But now that that stuff's gone, this has a much better chance of being able to compete. Comment down below on what you're doing with your premium decks and what you think about the Banlist in the format. Like I said, people are excited to be playing premium, and there are all kinds of deck lists that are popping up. Like another deck that I've got on hand is Granblue. I don't know if I'm really gonna profile it or not, because there are just other there are much more well-known and how should I put this, better Granblue players on, as far as premium format goes, on YouTube than myself, as I haven't really given Granblue that much attention in this format since before premium was a thing. Like, the last time I played Striding Granblue was back when God, what was that one? The promo Night Rose Stride came out, because yeah. But like, I'm looking forward to playing Night Rose in Zero though. That's anything. But yeah, like the Granblue list I'm mucking around with is one that plays Break Ride Night Mist to really make the bad bounty turn strong, and that might end up being like a playstyle that the deck will go into now that Cocytus Reverse looks like it'll be working with Cocytus in battle phase. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about all this. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time, this is Bluestar899 jacking out.